a child, I remember people talking about the man in the moon. I would look at the moon, but I didn't see a man. In fact, I just saw a big shape. Sometimes it was bigger, sometimes it was smaller, depending, of course, on the lunar cycle. I had an eye appointment not too long after this, and I was told that I needed glasses. And this was not what I wanted to hear. After all, I was a redhead with very fair skin and a lot of freckles, and I did not need anything else that would draw attention to myself. But alas, glasses I did get. The first full moon after I had this new accessory, I looked up into the sky and my dad asked if I could see the man in the moon. I said, well, I see something that could be a face with a smile. And Dad said, yep, that's it. I finally felt like I was included in this great circle of people who knew of this man in the moon. I just needed the gift of better eyesight to see it. My weak eyesight has been a thorn in my side since childhood. If I'm not wearing my glasses or my contacts, we are all in big trouble. So I'm grateful for the gift of this accessory that allows me to do what I want and what I need in the world. In our text today, Paul is addressing the Corinthians about these two things, bodies and gifts. To be honest with you, this is one of the few passages from the Apostle Paul that I don't want out of my Bible. I love this passage. It speaks to the very reason why I love and believe in and serve the church. We are all a part of the body of Christ, and we all have gifts. Without one another, the body is incomplete. It's a playground with no children, a beach with no sandcastles, a table with empty chairs. It is incomplete without us and the gifts we bring. But what does this being at the table really mean? Think for a moment about the biggest Thanksgiving or Christmas or most extravagant meal you've ever been to. Can you picture all of the food that's on the table? When I was growing up, we would go to my grandmother's for Thanksgiving. Turkey and ham were on the buffet. There were regular and sweet potatoes, every kind of vegetable in plain and casserole form, different types of rolls, multiple desserts, the list goes on and on. There was almost no room on the counters for the feast that was laid before us. And no one complained if there were duplicates. No one felt outdone by someone else or talked about why Aunt Penny brought green beans and not cherry pie. We were there to be together, enjoying the gifts that were brought. In that moment, we were joined as a family. We were connected. There was a ligament of love between us. It was a feast where no one's gift was rejected. Everything that was brought was welcomed and enjoyed. Every gift had a place at the table. These gifts, they are the ligaments that bind our bodies together through the Spirit. While those Thanksgivings at my grandmother's were always a feast, there were also two very distinct eating areas: the adult table and the kids' table. Do you remember sitting at the kids' table? Do you still have to sit at the kids' table? Have you experienced a kids' table in your own life? Maybe not at a time that was at a family gathering. In college, I attended a Pentecostal worship service. I was definitely enlightened into a new way of worship. After all, many of you know I am a lifelong Baptist who has dabbled her toes in another denomination, but those were with the Methodists. So being at a Pentecostal church was really different for me. And it was obvious that the people there were so devout, so free in their expressions of faith, and they held nothing back. But if I'm honest, I felt a little out of place, almost like an intruder. While I was amazed at those who were seemingly speaking in tongues, I also felt like an outsider. Though welcomed by the people, I was metaphorically seated at the kids' table. I wasn't sure what to do, so I participated in the best way that I could. And though I am not gifted in speaking in tongues or interpreting tongues, their fervor taught me about living into the spiritual gifts that I do have. I realized that the same Spirit that was in them is also in me. We were a part of the same body. We were joined by a ligament of love. And the gifts they brought to the table were honored by everyone, even those who didn't have what another had. It's this ligament of love that the Spirit uses to join us together. What is the ligament that joins you to the rest of the body? What will you bring to the table? As I've been thinking about this text, meditating and praying over the body, the gifts that we bring, the idea that every person, every gift has a place at the table, I recalled a conversation I had recently. I heard myself saying, here's what has to happen if we welcome everyone to the table. It means we may have to scoot our chairs closer to the person next to us. It means that two people might be at the head of the table. It means that we may have to be uncomfortable because our personal space has been cramped. Our vision of what the table will look like has probably changed. And yet, we are all called to welcome one another to the table. No one will be diminished or ignored. It will be messy, it will be loud, and it will be chaotic. But isn't that the way the Spirit works? When we reflect on this passage, we have to notice that Paul says the body, not just one part, not just the head or the heart, the lungs or the spine, it's the whole body. And no part is less valuable. Therefore, no gift or person is less valuable. I love the quote from Matt Skinner as a part of our silent meditation. No single person or category of people can claim exclusive insight into the Spirit's presence, the complete nature of the Spirit's activity. The fullness of the Spirit's work is corporate, with one Spirit manifested differently through different gifts. Therefore, we cannot exclude anyone, male or female, straight or gay, liberal or conservative. And I'm so proud of this church that I am a part of. I think we do a great job of including so many different people at the table. But I also think we need to be including our children. We must recognize the gifts that they bring to the table: laughter and joy, movement and whispers, and so many questions. They are a part of this corporate body, and they have a role in it. The gift of welcome to our children and their families is so needed and so necessary. They are not excluded, and they cannot be excluded if we are desiring and aiming to be the body of Christ. And isn't that our goal? One table means we can welcome the gifts that the children bring, and we need to. They are a part of the body. What would our body look like if they suddenly were not here? What would it look like if suddenly we were a church with no little giggles, no little whispers? As a part of this welcome, we must also give children space, safe space for their thoughts, their feelings, and their questions. They, like us, need to know that they have people who will not judge them, try to fix them, or change who God has created them to be. We can help give them someone to connect with so they feel less isolated as they grow up. We know that these gifts can help give them the assurances, the confidence, and the opportunity to live a more fulfilled and complete life. The truth is, the gifts that we give them now will impact them for years to come. I think we need to notice that this passage presents for us two challenges. Let's say two opportunities: change and diversity. The first is when we believe that we only have one gift, one purpose, one job in the body to do. Paul didn't list just one gift. He was not telling us that once we find our gift, once we find our passion, that's it. Think for a moment what the church was like 20 to 30 years ago. Do you remember cassette tapes? Cassette tapes. They were everywhere. And every church recorded cassette tapes of their service. Here's the reality now. Can you find a cassette tape? Do you have a way to even play it? I don't. Yet so many who served in the church suddenly had to figure out, well, what am I going to do? With the advancement of technology, new gifts had to be learned. With these changes comes amazing opportunity. A second challenge comes when we don't make room, when we don't value the gifts, acknowledge the gifts, or we believe that a gift is just not needed. When we convince ourselves that we have too many of one gift, or that one gift is not as important as another. To be honest, I've seen both of these opportunities, these challenges, manifest in members of the body. Few of us like change. It's really uncomfortable sometimes. It causes anxiety and maybe even fear. Yet change happens every day. Nothing is the same today as it was yesterday. Think about our physical bodies. If we have to make changes to our diet because of negative test results, we get really uncomfortable. We know it has to happen, but we still don't like to do it. Yet our bodies are not meant to stay the same. We are meant to grow and move, change and shift. Because if we choose to stay the same, we become weak, we become ill, and we become stagnant in our physical bodies and in our church. We must embrace the change and allow the Spirit to reveal the new gifts that we will be given through that change. I've also seen where bodies valued one gift over another. In the Corinthian church, preaching, teaching, healing, speaking in, and interpreting tongues were on the greatest value list, at least according to some. So where did that leave those who didn't have those gifts? Were they a less value to the body? Did they have less value with God? Paul is clear. There's not one gift that is greater than or lesser than another. The foot is not greater to the hand, nor the head greater than the heart. Preaching is not greater than rocking infants. Chaperoning a children's event is not greater than being a greeter. They are all gifts that come from the Spirit. They are all ligaments of love that join us together. This is what makes us one in the body of Christ. They are all needed to complete the table, to bring us together. I want to take Paul's words one step farther, if you'll let me. We've all been gifted, yet it's when we choose to sit on those gifts that we are denying the Spirit of God to do a new, creative, life-giving work in us and through us. When we choose not to accept and give the gift that we have been given, we reject the Spirit's breath in our bodies. We have to recognize that the gifts the Spirit gives are to build up, to strengthen, and to make the body healthy. There's not much room for unhealth. Recently, I was in another church who, like us, also has a covenant. There's a line in theirs that really stood out to me. It said that the church, the members, would do their best to only share what would enrich their church. They are acknowledging that what impacts one impacts all. It seems that Paul's writing about this as well. In his opening sentences, Paul is addressing what seems to be a debate among the Corinthians. Is one gift better than another? Then how do I have a place in the body? Where's my spot at the table? They are measuring validity of what is and is not from the Spirit. And Paul says, stop doing this. It's not healthy for the body. All the gifts that they possess are good. They all come from the Spirit. One cannot be greater than another. It seems that they were suffering from the illness of comparison. This illness had been spread to them by the Romans, who had convinced them that there was such a trait as being the greatest, the best, above everybody else. This belief was so pervasive in the Corinthian church that it was causing everyone to be unhealthy and divided and at odds with one another. And Paul calls them out on it. Paul reminds them that this is not strengthening the body. This is not adding to the table. It is only making the body weaker and the table less inviting. Whether we compare ourselves to another to elevate our own egos or to dwell in low self-esteem, this impacts the whole body. If we allow that mindset, that heart set to be the driving force, then we have not brought a gift from the Spirit, but a lie from the world. Paul is presenting that there is a big difference in the body of Christ, in the church, and in the world. In the world, we're told that there are those who are weaker, those who are less noticed, those who seemingly have less value. But that is not the case in the body of Christ, or it should not be. The body of Christ is a living, breathing, moving organism. All of the parts have meaning and purpose. No one person or gift should be elevated above another. So, as a living, breathing, moving organism with purpose, what are you bringing to the table? What are you adding to strengthen the body, making it healthier so that it can change for the better, so that it can become all that God has called and created it to be? The gifts that the Spirit gives are testimonies to who Christ is in our world. Therefore, there is no room for gossip or malice, disrespect or shaming. When these traits are present in the body of Christ, it infects all the parts. It's the same way that a stomach virus impacts the whole body. We are given gifts to build up the whole body, to make it stronger, not weaker. Do you remember the Whitney Houston song, "The Children Are Our Future"? Here are the opening lines. I believe the children are our future. Teach them well and let them lead the way. Show them all the beauty they possess inside. Give them a sense of pride to make it easier. Let the children's laughter remind us how we used to be. Show them all the beauty they possess inside. That beauty comes from the Spirit. Those gifts of love and acceptance, kindness and mercy, gifts of hospitality, prayer and teaching, and the list goes on and on. When we live in a way that is set on valuing one over another, disparaging one person's way of life, deciding that one person's idea or vision is not ours and therefore not worthy, then we are harming everyone. And we are not showing our children or one another what we need, which is one another. Just like the legs of our physical bodies and the legs of a table keep things up, keep things stable, the gifts that are of the Spirit do the same. We must show our children, the children in our church and beyond, that gifts of the Spirit will build up and not tear down. They're watching us. They're listening to us, and they're relying on us to guide them in the ways of the Spirit. We have the responsibility to show them how we and they can be ligaments of love. So it begs the question once more, what are you bringing to the table that strengthens the body? How are you being a ligament of love? The gifts that the children processed in with, and you see up here on the table, these are gifts that they came up with. Art, reading, and knitting. Music, sports, and driving people who need transportation. Baking, teaching Sunday school, and taking photos. They told me how each of these gifts can show love and kindness. Each gift is a way that they and others can bring the body of Christ together through the gifts on the table. Then one fourth grader raised their hand and shared a gift based on a picture that I had displayed. The picture was of a kitten and a puppy. She looked at it and she said, "Dogs and cats don't always get along, just like people don't always get along. So maybe you can use the gift of helping people to get along. Help there to be more peace in the world." So I ask you one more time, what is your ligament of love? What are you bringing to the table on this day, in this moment? Amen.